So I just finished a holiday position where I worked there for about the month of December, and at the end, one of my coworkers who was also in a holiday position, he um we were saying our goodbyes because he didn't want to stay or find a full-time position there, which I did, and luckily I did find a full-time job, so it's exciting. I'll be starting in a couple weeks. But what he said to me, um, he wished me well on my future with marketing and my schooling. And then he told me that I was the first trans person that he knew and or got to know, and the first trans person that he worked with. And he said that he was very proud of that. Um, he said that, you know, he's involved in local politics here. So he said that he's gonna kind of talk about it, and um, he kind of talked about himself a little bit, but that's okay. He said that he's proud and that he is excited that he got to know a trans person, and things went well, and that kind of stuck out to me. That's I don't know. I guess I never had anyone come up to me and say that before, but yeah, that's what I want to talk about today. I had something else planned, but um, this happened last week, and I feel like it's important to talk about it. So let's get into that. This is Poised and Petty. This is my podcast where I talk about all things transgender, specifically my transition from male to female, from boy to babe. This will be my little podcast diary about my transition, about what I'm going through. Hopefully, this will be a weekly conversation about my gender transition, fashion, beauty, makeup, self-development, and the art of being graceful, unstoppable, and just petty enough to keep things interesting. So if you want to follow along, drop a like, drop a follow, subscribe wherever you're listening to it, and let's get into it. So, as the title says, I'm actually still working on the title, but I'm thinking it's going to be Accidental Activism. So, like I said, I recently had a holiday position that thankfully turned into a full-time job. And there was another holiday coworker who I worked with. He is about in the retirement age. He's involved in local politics, and we both are on the same side, so more left-leaning Democratic. And I always like to talk to him about politics, but some of the other coworkers didn't appreciate that. But yeah, like I said, at the end, our last day together, I was just in the break room, and he came up to me, wished me well on my future in marketing and work and school. And then, yeah, he just said that he said I was the first trans person he knew, he met, but I'm sure he's bumped into trans people before. But yeah, he said I was a good person, good coworker, and yeah, I guess this I don't know. I felt it was a good feeling, the things he said, but I was just shocked. I was like, I've never had that conversation before. But yeah, it just got me thinking that I didn't mean to be a representation or an advocate for the community, but just existing, you kind of are, especially if you're visibly trans and you talk about it and you're vocal about it. So I mean, yeah, I guess it just got me thinking that how we act, who we are, in our community, in society, at work, really impacts what other people see in the trans community. Because, the news talks about it, people might have an idea or what they think they know. Yeah, so I guess just being who you are, your everyday life, you are an advocate for the trans community. And yeah, it was just, I guess it was a very eye-opening experience to have someone come up and say those things. I guess when I think of representation or being an advocate for the trans community, it's usually, in pop culture or in media, TV shows, movies. That's what I think of when I think of representation. When I think of someone being an advocate, I think of being involved in politics, going to protests, or going to local events, legislation, fighting for our community. But I guess it's also existing and just being who you are, and just being visible by existing. It's very important that we hold ourselves to a kind of standard, because in media and in the news and on the other side of the political aisle, they make trans people out to be these big bad guys, or a lot of people say some really awful things. So it's very important to just exist and be visible. I guess that's what I've always known that, but I guess after that conversation last week, it really sunk in that I was being observed as a trans person without even knowing it, without even trying. So yeah, I guess your everyday interactions, you just living your life, can impact other people's viewpoints on the trans community. So yeah, I guess being a what did I say I was going to call this title? Accidental activism. So yeah, I guess it's important that we need to, not everyone wants to be or should be visibly trans. I understand that. But to acknowledge that you will be observed if you are visibly trans. And it's important that we act and behave in a way that kind of shows the public who we are and what we do. Yeah. It's interesting because on social media, online, on the internet, everywhere, I follow trans people. I see trans people. I connect and network and make friends with other trans people, both online and in real life. So every day I interact with trans people. So it's interesting to have someone come up to me and say that I was their first reference point, and they don't interact with the trans community, or are not involved in the trans community. So it's very much the opposite of my life, where everything is trans related compared to someone who it's 0% trans related. Yeah, I guess I think mm, I think how I interact, how I behave, and portray myself is going to be a little more intentional uh, when I go out in society, knowing that I will be observed. And yeah, so I guess it's interesting to have that moment. I don't know if any of y'all have had a moment like that. If you have, let me know what happened. I'm curious on others' experience with that. Yeah, I'm excited that the coworker who I interacted with is involved in local politics. So I think that's huge. He said he was thinking about getting back into it. Yeah, which is huge. It's just great to hear. We need more people like him being vocal and fighting the good fight. Um, yeah, especially knowing that he told me that I was his first person he interacted with coworker. Yeah, I hope kind of makes me want to get more involved in politics. Yeah, that was a it was a very interesting moment that I thought I wanted to share and get that out there. Um, yeah, when it comes to being visible and um, visibly trans, talk about being trans, I personally will be visibly trans and talk about it. I, I mean, of course, I do want to pass eventually in the future, but I don't want to hide being trans. I don't want to be invisible. I think if you are, and it's tough, especially online, you're gonna get a lot of hate. You're gonna get a lot of terrible things said to you. Luckily, I haven't had much of that in real life. Um, but I think it's important to be visibly trans and to represent this community. Um, I always thought of it as, yeah, like I said, being involved in politics or going out to protests or, being on social media. But it's also important in your everyday life when you're at your work, when you're at school, when you're at going out grocery shopping or whatever. Being visibly trans, I think, is very important, especially in the political climate that we are in right now, where there's a lot of hate and evil, both in society and kind of everyone's life, but also in politics and the news. So I think even especially now, being vocal, being visible is important, and I will be uh, taking that a lot more seriously in the future when it comes to um, being a good example, or hopefully being a good example to the trans community. Um, and I know I don't want to try to be perfect or to be an ideal, um, whatever the perfect example looks like. Um, but I will try my best, and I think that's the most we can ask for. Yeah. So I mean, I guess my message to everyone is that you don't have to be visible. Personally, I think it's important, and I think it's worth the risk of the hate, the evil that's out in the world, and I'm willing to kind of take on that, and accept the risks that come with that. Um, unfortunately, there is a lot of harm, both through hate speech and being physically harmed, that I worry about. But I mean, yeah, I think it's important. Yeah, I guess. What are all your thoughts on being visibly trans, being out there? I'm curious on if anyone else has experience similar to what I went through. Um, yeah, let me know in the comments. Yeah, I guess that is it. I didn't really have it too planned out or scripted. So, yeah, I guess that will be it. Yeah, if you like hearing about all things transition, yeah, drop a like, subscribe, follow, and I will see y'all next time.